Hello and a warm welcome back to the garden. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to divide Geranium Rozanne and also how to grow it. Geranium Rozanne has to be one of the most popular types of geraniums to grow, particularly here in the UK. And it's no wonder. This plant has a flower season that goes all the way from June all the way to the first frosts. It has a wonderful spread of up to 1 metre and it grows to around 40 to 50 centimetres tall. Now the actual flowers, the actual flowering stems kind of creep, so they go really wide, and if there is some neighbouring plants that the plant can climb up, you do often see the flowers mingling through the neighbouring plants and climbing upwards, giving you those brilliant, excellent associations with other plants around it. So this is a clump that I've just dug up from our front garden, and this originally came from one plant which we divided into two. So this is the portion we planted in the front garden, and the other portion is in just the border just behind me. So what I've decided to do is, because our front garden is pretty much a very sunny place and there are lots and lots of plants that we want to grow that have a susceptibility to being eaten by slugs. So what we've done is we've moved some of those to the front, and things like geraniums, they're not affected by slugs whatsoever. So this can really be planted anywhere. So although it was brilliant in the front and looked lovely, we wanted to use that space for some other special things that we can't grow very well in the back. So this is the clump itself. So this is probably about maybe 2 years old now, maybe 2 or 3 years old. And you can see it is a bit of a bluebell there in there. You can see it is quite a size. And the way that this one grows is, if you can see, we have all of these separate plants, all of them literally separate plants growing around all of the edges. So this has the capacity of probably making maybe 30 plants, even more perhaps. But what I'm going to do is just split it up into smaller groups, because I do want to have a lot of this plant in the back garden, and mainly in our new borders that we're growing just behind where the camera is. So I've just given you a brief description of how this plant grows and its brilliant flowering attributes, which is a very long season. The actual flowers themselves are a blue saucer shape with a white centre, so very beautiful. It's actually a sterile plant, so you're not going to find seedlings anywhere amongst the bed that it kind of self-sows anywhere. So it's quite a well-behaved plant in that respect. And also it's a really good plant for wildlife. The pollinators, the bees, love to come to this and get lots and lots of nectar and pollen. So let's get to dividing it. So the easiest way that I find to divide most plants is usually to go straight down the centre, and then from that point we can then either split again into half or into 3, or as many as you want to. So I'm just going to use, I've got a bigger saw for this because I do suspect it's going to be quite tough to get through. So just using that, I'm just going to literally saw right down. Through to the centre. And if you can see nicely, that just comes away quite easily. If we just pull that. So you might lose a few little pieces. But on the whole, it does come into 2 nice sized clumps. So with that, I'm just going to do that again. So again, if you just kind of partition off where you're going to make the next cut, and then just using your saw, your knife, or whatever you choose to use, you can then just go through that. And sometimes can be quite tough. And there we go. So I'm going to say that's one clump, and I'm going to say that is another one. So some of these other clumps can actually be potted up as smaller plants because they do still have part of that root on them, so they will root. But these bigger pieces I'm actually going to put into bigger containers. So here we go again. Let me just cut him right down the centre there. And then just try and untangle some of the roots as you go. There you go. So you are going to lose some roots as well, so that's fine. And then because we are doing such a drastic action with this, and we're cutting it into such small pieces, what I'm actually going to do is reduce some of this foliage as well. So just using some secateurs, I'm just going to chop some of that off. Now it does look a bit drastic, but that will give it the best chance of succeeding. So a lot of these will come away a little bit better as well. So let's get these, just chop them off. And you get smaller little plants. So with regards to this one, because there is so much of the plant, there's probably a lot of that root that isn't actually attached now. So if I just pull it along, and whatever comes loose, I can just remove. There we go. So I'm just using the bits that are actually attached to the plant, and then again just give that a haircut, and these will grow back really quickly, so you don't have to worry too much that you're cutting off all of that growth. And this doesn't flower until June, so we still have time to do this during the month of April before it starts flowering. So that's one there, 2, 3, some smaller portions, and even ones like this, providing you've got a little bit of root like that, if you just chop them off like that and put that into a container, you will actually get growth from that. So these smaller ones, I'm just going to trim. To remove all that foliage, and then with a pot, put some compost in the pot, and I'm just going to grab this one first and just pop that in. Take off that bit and pop that around. So with these, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to clump these together, because they will form a little clump of their own and save on having lots and lots of pots. So I'm putting them all in together. also going to give this root a bit of a trim. I'm not going to find a pot big enough to put all that in it. And don't be afraid of trimming the roots a little bit. It will stimulate more roots to develop. So I've now got 3 larger ones. So I've got some larger containers here for these. So make sure the pot is big enough to hold the roots. And this technique is also really good if you've just gone out and bought a Rozanne plant and you want to divide it while it's still in its container. You can get it divided and that'll give you more plants to plant out. And if you wanted to, these plants are actually quite sufficient to be able to be planted in the border if you wished. I'm just placing them in containers at the moment until we find room in the main area of the new garden. And then the very last one. And it pops. And the great thing about hardy geraniums is you can really treat them quite mean, and they will be very forgiving, and they'll come up with fresh foliage, and for the most part, depending on which variety you're growing, also fresh flowers. So that's 3, 4, 5 new plants. And then the last thing to do, remember to give them a really good water. So water them thoroughly. And also make sure you give them a label so you know which they are. A lot of these geraniums, if you are dividing more than one, do look very similar. And obviously as the growth comes and you get to see them in better leaf, you can recognise them more. But at this point, if they are being placed amongst other plants, put a label in there so you know exactly what they are. Don't make the mistake that I've made in the past and try and work out what these plants are, because it doesn't always help. So I've given them a good water. They don't need any protection. They don't need to go in a greenhouse. These can just go back outdoors. Again, like I said, if you want to put them and divide them into separate parts and place them back into your border, you can also do that. These are very, very hardy plants, very amenable. It's very difficult to kill a hardy geranium. In fact, the only ones I would say are more difficult to grow are the more darker leaved ones. They seem to be a little bit more fussy. But these green leaved ones, I've not really come across one that you can kill. It's very, very easy and perfect for beginner gardeners. So there's no reason why you can't be growing these. And as I've already said, if you're growing these and you've just bought a pot of geraniums and you're thinking, it's quite a good size, I've only bought one, because plants these days are about £12, if not more. And if you can get more plants out of that £12, it does mean that that money that you spent initially goes a longer way. And we're all about being economical with gardening. So I do hope you found this video informative and enjoyable. Please hit that like, please subscribe. If you have any comments, drop them in the comments box below. We will see you very soon on the next video. In the meantime, please do take care. Happy gardening.